Hey everyone, and welcome back to Under the Curve, the podcast where we take some of the most complex economic ideas in the world and, well, make them make sense. I'm your host, and today we are tackling something truly fascinating: the 2022 Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences. This is a big deal. And the best part is the work that won this prize is directly responsible for why the financial crisis of 2008 didn't turn into a repeat of the Great Depression. The prize was awarded to three incredible economists: Ben Bernanke, Douglas Diamond, and Philip Dybvig. You might recognize Bernanke's name, as he was the former head of the US Federal Reserve. However, it's their collective research, particularly their work from the early 1980s, that created a new blueprint for understanding the financial system. So, let's go back in time to the intellectual landscape of the 1970s and early 80s. Back then, economists knew that banks were important, but they didn't have a solid, unifying theory to explain why they were so vital to the economy, or more importantly, why they were so fragile. It was a bit like trying to understand the internet before we had a concept of networks or data packets. There were a lot of competing ideas and fragmented thoughts, but no one had tied them all together in a comprehensive way. Therefore, the prevailing wisdom was often incomplete, leaving a massive gap in our understanding of financial crises. When a bank failed, many people just saw it as a symptom of a broader economic downturn, not as a core reason for the downturn itself. This is where our story truly begins with Diamond and Dybvig. In 1983, they published a game-changing paper. They introduced a model that, for the first time, explained the two most essential functions of a bank. First, they perform what's called maturity transformation. This sounds fancy, but it's actually quite simple. They take your short-term deposits, your savings account money that you can access at any time, and use it to fund long-term illiquid loans like mortgages for homes or financing for new factories. This process is hugely beneficial to society. It takes money that would otherwise just sit there and puts it to work, creating growth and opportunity. But this brilliance has a major downside, a fatal flaw, if you will. The second thing their model showed is that this very process makes banks inherently vulnerable to a bank run. Think of it like a crowded movie theater. Everyone is happy and calm until a single person yells, "Fire." Even if there is no fire, people will panic and rush the doors. It's a classic case of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The bank has everyone's money tied up in long-term loans, so it physically can't give everyone their money back at once. Consequently, if enough depositors believe the bank might fail, they will all rush to withdraw their money, and the bank will fail, even if it was financially healthy moments before. The very rumors of a problem can cause the problem itself. Now, this is where Ben Bernanke's work comes into play and provides the perfect complement. While Diamond and Dybvig gave us the theoretical model, Bernanke gave us the historical, empirical proof. He was a scholar of the Great Depression and, through painstaking research, he demonstrated that the widespread bank failures of the 1930s weren't just a consequence of the economic downturn. They were a primary cause of why the depression was so deep and so long-lasting. He showed that when banks collapsed, valuable information about borrowers, who was creditworthy, who wasn't, was lost forever. This crippled the economy's ability to channel savings into productive investments. It's like if the communication system between every company suddenly shut down. The entire system seizes up. Therefore, the crisis went from bad to catastrophically worse. So, what did all this mean for the real world? The research from all three of these laureates laid the scientific groundwork for modern financial policy. They showed policymakers that it is absolutely vital to avoid widespread bank collapses at all costs. This is the intellectual foundation for why we have things like deposit insurance, like the FDIC in the US. By guaranteeing that your money is safe up to a certain amount, this policy effectively breaks the cycle of panic and prevents a bank run from ever getting started. This research was front and center during the 2008 financial crisis. As the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Bernanke had a front row seat to a potential repeat of the 1930s. But because of his own work and the work of his co-laureates, he and other central bankers around the world knew they had to act decisively and rapidly to prevent a complete collapse of the financial system. They injected money into the system, bailed out banks, and did whatever was necessary to keep the financial arteries open. The work of these three men quite literally provided the playbook for saving the global economy from a much, much darker fate. If you enjoyed this, hit follow on Under the Curve. We've got more stories lined up because economics isn't just about numbers, it's about people, choices, and the hidden forces shaping our lives. Next time, we're going back 1 year to the 2021 Nobel Prize. That one's all about jobs, wages, and the clever ways economists figured out how to run experiments in the real world without actually running experiments. Think of it as the mythbusters of economics. So stay tuned, stay curious, and remember the big economic questions aren't just academic, they live right here under the curve of everyday life.